Hey everyone, and welcome back to KenkoVibe, your daily dose of health insights. I'm Ethan Reed, and I am so excited for today's deep dive. We are tackling a question I'm sure many of you have pondered at some point.
I'm Grace Morgan, and that question is, can those mysterious subliminal messages actually help us lose weight?
Ooh, mysterious is right.
Whoa.
It almost sounds too good to be true. Like I could just listen to some music or watch a video and bam, the pounds just melt away.
If only it were that simple. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we jump into the effectiveness, you're right, we should probably start by defining what we're even talking about. Subliminal messages are essentially stimuli, like sounds or images that are so subtle they fly under the radar of our conscious awareness.
So things we don't even realize we're seeing or hearing. Like, is this where that whole hidden messages in rock music conspiracy theory comes from?
Well, maybe not quite that dramatic, but the core concept is similar. The idea is that even though we might not be consciously aware of these messages, our brains could still be processing them. That processing might influence our behavior.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this could go. So if our brains are picking up on these messages without us knowing, could they be subtly nudging us towards healthier habits?
That's the hope, at least when it comes to weight loss. And the idea's been around for a while. People have tried using subliminal messages to target all sorts of behaviors, from quitting smoking and boosting self-esteem to, yes, shedding those extra pounds.
So how do they actually work? Do these programs just whisper, eat less, exercise more over and over again, but so quietly you can't hear it?
It can be a bit more nuanced than that. Some programs do use audio messages, but they might be layered with music or nature sounds. Others utilize visual cues like flashing words or images too quickly for the conscious mind to register.
So it's like a secret code that only our subconscious minds can crack.
In a way, yes. And to add another layer of complexity, some programs also incorporate techniques like hypnosis, positive affirmations, and guided meditations. The idea is to create a multi-pronged approach, combining the power of the subconscious with more conscious techniques.
Sounded like a lot going on. But before we get too deep into the how, let's talk about the big question. Does it actually work? Can listening to subliminal messages really help someone lose weight?
Well, that's where things get a bit murky. While the idea is certainly captivating, the scientific evidence to support those claims is, let's just say, a bit lacking.
Oh no, really? So all those ads promising effortless weight loss with subliminal messages might be a bit of an exaggeration.
You could say that a 2018 analysis of numerous studies concluded that using subliminal cues didn't significantly impact food intake. And one study way back in 1992 divided women into three groups: one listening to subliminal messages, one to a placebo, and one to nothing at all.
Okay, so which group lost the most weight? Drum roll, please.
The results might surprise you. All three groups lost a similar amount.
Whoa, so even back then, the evidence wasn't exactly pointing towards subliminal messages being the weight loss miracle they were often portrayed as.
Right. However, even in that early study, the researchers noted that listening to the messages, even if they didn't directly lead to more weight loss, did seem to make the participants more aware of that weight.
Interesting. So maybe those messages, even if they weren't directly melting away fat, were planting seeds in people's minds, making them more conscious of their choices.
It's certainly possible. And there's some newer research that suggests subliminal messaging might have some indirect benefits when it comes to weight loss goals.
Okay, so tell me more. What kind of indirect benefits are we talking about?
Well, one recent experiment indicated that subliminal food messages might actually influence how well someone sticks to their diet.
So maybe it's not about directly controlling how much you eat, but rather influencing your mindset and choices when it comes to food.
That's one way to think about it. And another study in 2014 looked at the effects of these messages on exercise. They found that people exposed to positive subliminal messages before working out ended up cycling longer than those exposed to negative ones.
Okay, now that's fascinating. So a little positive reinforcement, even if it's below our conscious radar, could actually give us that extra boost to push ourselves further.
Exactly. However, it's not always a simple positive message equals positive outcome scenario. A 2009 study threw a bit of a wrench in things. They found that subliminal messages promoting exercise actually led participants to eat more afterwards.
Wait, what? So encouraging exercise through subliminal messages could backfire and make people eat more.
It seems counterintuitive, right? But it highlights the fact that we're dealing with complex systems here. Our brains and bodies don't always respond in predictable ways.
Definitely gives you pause. But before we move on, you mentioned an older study about how subliminal messages might affect our attention to different types of food. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Absolutely. This study focused on what researchers called diet-related keywords, which are basically terms associated with healthy eating and weight loss. They found that participants who were dieting paid less attention to tempting high-calorie foods after being exposed to these keywords subliminally.
Interesting. So perhaps those subliminal messages were helping people resist those tempting treats by subtly shifting their focus towards healthier options.
It's a compelling possibility, and this ties into a larger 2012 research review that suggested viewing food and diet-related keywords both consciously and subconsciously could influence dieting behaviors.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. While the direct link between subliminal messages and dropping pounds might be debatable, there's growing evidence that these messages might be subtly shaping our thoughts and behaviors around food and exercise.
Exactly, and it's crucial to remember that subliminal messages might not work the same for everyone.
Right, because we're all unique individuals with different experiences, motivations, and maybe even different wiring in our brains.
Precisely. Factors like whether the message is audio or visual, individual goals, cultural background, even hunger levels and personality traits, all of these things could play a role in how effective those messages are.
So it's not as simple as just popping in a subliminal weight loss tape and watching the pounds magically disappear.
I wish it were that easy, but it's a much more nuanced and individualized process.
Wow, this is all so much more complicated than I initially imagined.
Isn't it fascinating?
It is. But unfortunately, it looks like we're just about out of time for this part of our deep dive.
Don't worry, everyone. We'll be back with part 2, where we'll explore some practical tips if you're considering trying a subliminal weight loss program and discuss whether it's really worth giving it a shot.
Until then, keep those brains buzzing.
Welcome back to KenkoVibe. It's amazing how quickly the time flies when you're exploring the hidden depths of the human mind.
Right. Last time we were delving into the world of subliminal messages and their potential impact on weight loss. And let's be honest, the research we uncovered was a bit of a mixed bag.
Definitely. While the idea of effortlessly shedding pounds by listening to a few subliminal tracks is undeniably appealing, the science just doesn't seem to back it up, at least not in that straightforward magic bullet kind of way.
Exactly.
Mm.
But there were some hints that these messages might be working on a more subtle level, potentially influencing our thoughts and behaviors around food and exercise.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting. Because if those subtle influences can be harnessed effectively, it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and thinking, maybe I should give these subliminal weight loss programs a try. What advice would you give them?
Well, first thing I'd emphasize is that this is still a largely unregulated territory. There's no governing body out there certifying that a company is actually embedding those subliminal messages as promised.
So it's a bit of a buyer beware situation.
Exactly. It's crucial to do your research before investing your time and money. Look for programs from reputable sources, read reviews from other users, and be wary of any claims that sound too good to be true.
Because let's be real, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right. And once you've found a program that seems credible, pay close attention to the instructions. Many of these programs emphasize that the best results come when you combine subliminal messaging with other healthy lifestyle changes.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
It's probably not realistic to expect a subliminal message to do all the heavy lifting while you're still indulging in unhealthy habits.
Precisely. Think of subliminal messaging as a potential tool in your weight loss arsenal, not a replacement for those foundational habits we all know are crucial.
Okay, so to recap, if someone's considering trying a subliminal weight loss program, choose one from a trustworthy source. Read those instructions carefully and be prepared to put in the work alongside those subliminal nudges.
Exactly. And even then, it's essential to remember that individual results can vary wildly. What works wonders for one person might have zero effect on another.
We're all snowflakes after all, each with our own unique bio-individuality and responses to different stimuli.
Right. So it's all about finding what resonates with your own body and mind.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the how, and the why of subliminal weight loss programs. But the question that's probably on everyone's mind is it actually worth it?
Ah, the million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. The research is still inconclusive, and the anecdotal evidence is all over the map.
So how can someone make an informed decision about whether to take the plunge into the world of subliminal messaging?
Well, I'd start by managing expectations. Don't go into it thinking it's a quick fix or a magical solution that will instantly transform your body.
Because at the end of the day, sustainable weight loss is about making those long-term lifestyle changes, not relying on some subliminal shortcut.
Absolutely. Those positive lifestyle changes, like incorporating regular exercise and choosing nutritious foods, have a mountain of scientific evidence supporting their effectiveness. Subliminal messaging, on the other hand, is still a bit of a wild card.
So it's important to keep those foundational healthy habits front and center, and maybe consider exploring subliminal messages as an additional layer of support rather than the main event.
Exactly. And another thing I'd encourage people to do is to check in with their motivations. Are you genuinely curious about this approach, or are you desperately seeking a quick fix because you're feeling frustrated or discouraged with your current weight loss journey?
That's such a great point, because if it's the latter, it might be more beneficial to address those underlying reasons why you're feeling stuck or why you're seeking a shortcut in the first place.
Right. Sometimes those deep-seated desires for a quick fix can be masking other issues, maybe with body image, self-esteem, or even disordered eating patterns. Those are
Mhm.
all important things to address head on.
Definitely. It's crucial to prioritize both mental and emotional well-being alongside our physical health goals.
Absolutely. So before diving headfirst into the world of subliminal messages, take some time for self-reflection. Make sure you're approaching this from a place of genuine curiosity and a commitment to your overall well-being.
I love that. Approach it with curiosity, not desperation.
Exactly. And remember, this is a journey of personal exploration. What works for one person might not work for another. It's all about listening to your body, trusting your intuition, and making choices that align with your individual needs and goals.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
We definitely have. And in part three, we'll be exploring some of the ethical considerations surrounding subliminal messaging and discussing what the future might hold for this intriguing field.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to KenkoVibe. We are wrapping up our deep dive into the world of subliminal messages and their potential impact on weight loss.
It's been quite the journey, hasn't it? We've explored the science, the claims, the potential benefits, and the drawbacks.
And we've also talked about the importance of setting realistic expectations, prioritizing those healthy habits we know are effective, and making informed decisions about whether this approach aligns with your personal goals.
But before we wrap things up, there's one crucial aspect we haven't touched on yet, the ethical considerations surrounding subliminal messaging.
Right, because when we start talking about influencing behavior without conscious awareness, it does raise some questions about autonomy and consent.
Absolutely. We're essentially venturing into a bit of a gray area ethically, even if those messages are subtle. And even if they're intended for good, there's still that underlying question, are they truly respecting our freedom of choice?
It makes you think, are we really making a free and informed decision if we're being subtly nudged in a particular direction without even realizing it?
Exactly. And that's why some people argue that subliminal messaging, even when used with the best of intentions, could be viewed as a form of manipulation.
Especially when you consider the fact that many of these programs are commercially driven. They're ultimately trying to sell you something.
Right. It's one thing to use subliminal messages for personal development, but when those messages are tied to a product or a service, it raises concerns about exploitation.
And those concerns become even more pronounced when we think about individuals who might be particularly vulnerable people struggling with body image issues or disordered eating patterns.
That's a really important point. In those situations, the potential for harm increases significantly.
So it seems like the bottom line is that anyone considering using subliminal messaging, especially for something as sensitive as weight loss, needs to proceed with caution and a healthy dose of critical thinking.
Absolutely. We need to be mindful of the potential impact of these messages, not only on ourselves, but on society as a whole.
Well said. And as we look toward the future, it's clear that this ethical debate is only going to intensify.
Definitely. As technology advances and our understanding of the brain evolves, we're likely to see even more sophisticated methods of delivering subliminal messages.
Which means these conversations about responsible use and potential unintended consequences are going to become even more crucial.
Exactly. It's a fascinating and complex landscape, and staying informed and engaged is essential.
Well, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of subliminal messages and their potential influence on weight loss.
We've covered a lot of ground, exploring the science, the claims, the potential benefits, the drawbacks, and those all-important ethical considerations.
Hopefully, this deep dive has left you with a lot to think about.
And as always, we encourage you to continue doing your own research, asking questions, and making informed choices that support your health and well-being.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to KenkoVibe, your daily dose of health insights.
And be sure to like, comment, and share this episode with anyone who might be interested in exploring this fascinating topic further.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the intriguing world of subliminal messaging. I'm Ethan Reed.
And I'm Grace Morgan.
This has been KenkoVibe.